Okay, so we are starting the webinar 7:03 p.m. And let's see, we've got, looks like three folks in the audience. That number tends to grow as we get ramped up. Alex, hello. Arlene, hello. Janet, hello. Jean, and Jerry Johnson. Great. So we've got some familiar faces on the committee, of course, and then we've also got some familiar names in the audience. So we will get started. Um, for those of you joining us tonight in the public, you will see that there are fewer faces online tonight than we typically have from the committee. Mr. Chauvin has sent his apologies, but he was double booked, and Ms. Gall is hosting her 3D Community Advisory Committee meeting tonight, so she is unable to join. So we'll start with our roll call, and then we will pull our meeting together. Howard Kurtzman,
Present.
David Martin,
Present.
Krishna Kumar,
Present.
Matt Fay here. Ian Hawksworth is not here. Frank Chauvin is not here but noted. Karen Gall not here but noted. Um, Tanya Shand is not here. So with 4 of 8 in attendance, we have our quorum, and we don't actually have a very robust agenda tonight. We've got a handful of updates, and we've got a couple of kind of next step items, but we don't have anything of kind of real meaty substance. I'm certainly open to comments and questions from the community, and we'll provide an opportunity for that here in a moment. But I am thinking that we may be done with our meeting between 7:30 and 7:45. Krishna has already told me in advance that he's holding me to 7:45. And I think that's probably okay. Um, let's dig in. The first thing I want to just close the loop on is this committee very thoughtfully wrestled with an alternative resolution to the gentle density resolution that was considered several times by the ANC 1B Commission. And in our last meeting, we finalized and adopted a resolution that we felt addressed the shortcomings of the resolution being considered by the commission. Oh, I like that. We should do this more often, Krishna. Uh, that we felt addressed the shortcomings of the resolution that had been presented by Commissioner Barrio, and we presented that to the commission for their consideration. My feeling on that was that we had presented it as an alternative. I didn't think that we were presenting it as an and option. My sense is that we were presenting it as an or option, because our focus was on, trying to create opportunity for housing affordability. We were trying to focus on reducing displacement. And for those of you who did not attend the meeting, the commission ultimately did vote to approve Commissioner Barrio's resolution. I am not stating anything other than fact that the commissioners, in their opening statements and in advance of the public testimony, had declared their support for the resolution as presented by Commissioner Barrio. And so, to some extent, the public testimony was moot, and so was the resolution that we had presented as well. Um, I want to really thank Howard Kurtzman for his very, very thoughtful comments during the commission meeting, raising concerns and also expressing what I believe is the very thoughtful and disciplined perspective of this committee. Frank Chauvin for his comments, for Karen Gall for her many written comments in the Q&A. And then I also really want to laud this committee for all of the efforts that they invested, along with some of our regular participants, in getting the word out to other commissions and other areas of the city where there were concerns about negative impact. And there were some, I thought, unbelievably well-spoken commissioners who joined and shared their testimony and shared their thoughts about the resolution. And so I'm grateful for the level of engagement and thoughtfulness that we had, but also that this group generated. So at the end of the day, the resolution presented by Commissioner Barrio was approved. It was approved of the 9 commissioners, 6 voted for it and 3 voted against it. and so it did pass. Howard.
Yeah, Matt, I want to praise you. You did an outstanding job conveying our point of view and answering questions, maintaining your patience. And I think there was nothing you could have said or done differently that would have changed the outcome. It was clear that most of the commissioners had already made up their minds. But it was not a wasted effort. I think the proponents of that resolution are now going to presumably seek out other endorsements from other ANCs. But people can look back at the discussion that this ANC had and this committee had, and we can provide them with some uh, materials and thoughts that can guide them. Because I don't think there's broad support for this among the public once they understand what the issues are. It took us a while to figure out what all the issues were, but they've now been exposed. So I think it was disappointing, but still well worth it. And
Yeah.
thank you.
No, thank you for that. And I agree. I was disappointed, but I also was very proud of the work that we all did, that the community did. And look, these are all really tricky problems. There are no easy solutions. And each one of the solutions has, the possibility for unintended impacts. And I thought we did a nice job of trying to parse those apart. I think we probably across the board have more work to do. But if we're going to get to thoughtful solutions, we've got to engage in thoughtful discourse and thoughtful engagement. And I think we did that in this committee well. And I'm going to continue to strive to promote thoughtful discussion and thoughtful engagement as we go and tackle other items inside the commission, but also, of course, here in our committee. One proposal I wanted to put to this group was that I feel like we have probably spent enough time talking about zoning and planning topics that don't impact our ANC area, that I would be comfortable supporting a motion to withdraw the resolution that this committee sent to the full commission so that we can all begin to turn our attention to planning topics that are related to the commission area. And so what happened at the end of the or at, through the commission meeting was that Commissioner Barrio's resolution was approved. The resolution that we had presented had a very brief discussion given the time limits that had been imposed, and it was ultimately referred to the zoning committee for their feedback and their commentary. And so I'm certainly happy for our resolution to continue to kind of go through its cycle and get feedback from zoning and have another kind of run at the commission discussion. But I'm equally comfortable withdrawing it and saying that this commission has weighed in with its preferences on gentle density, and that we're going to turn our attention to planning and planning topics that are more pertinent to our immediate area. Go ahead, Krishna.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that. I mean, isn't it kind of a dead issue now that they passed Commissioner Barrio's resolution?
That's my interpretation, right? And again, I think that the way that I saw our resolution, and you all should weigh in too, because I think it matters in where we go next. My interpretation of our resolution was it was an option. Either we go with Commissioner Barrios or we go with ours. The chair, Trindade Duramo, described it as the potential for an and. And I'm not quite sure that you can support one resolution that
Yeah.
that promotes by right development and another that says we're not comfortable with by right development, right? There's a contradiction there that is irreconcilable. So I think to some extent it is moot. I think the commission has voted and it has weighed in with its preference. So even if this were to go forward, I suspect it would not be voted up. It would not be voted up in its current form. And frankly, I just want to use everyone's time well. I want to honor the work we've done, right? But I want to use everyone's time well.
Yeah, I mean, I would be in support of withdrawing the resolution. I kind of agree that it seems to be moved to this point. And I mean, essentially, all that was really done is it was sent over for zoning for more comments.
Correct.
And it's not going to go anywhere, and I don't see how the commission can pass this and the burial resolution at the same time. So I kind of agree that issue. Let's take it off the table.
And by you support, you mean I move that?
I mean, I just wanted to have some see if anyone else had any discussion, but I'd be happy to make that motion.
Great. David, Howard, any
I
thoughts?
agree with that as well.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Kumar, I take your motion to withdraw the resolution from consideration at the commission. I will second
Well,
that.
actually, can I
Yeah.
ask a question? If zoning is in the process of looking at it, are, are we going to tell them don't look at it, or should we wait till they send us comments? Maybe they'll have some wonderful creative idea that we haven't thought of. So,
We could. I mean, they are scheduled to meet on Monday of this coming week. They rescheduled their meeting because their typical schedule is the third Monday, and with this third Monday being a holiday, they rescheduled to Monday of next week. So it's very easy for me to email Christian Brandt, who chairs ZPD, and just give him a kind of a heads up that we've had this discussion, and that he does not need to invest the time of his committee in this. And just to be candid, like if they're not spending time talking about a different gentle density resolution, they're spending time talking about comp planning ideas for ANC 1B and the U Street corridor. I'd really rather have all of us spending our time talking about the challenges that we think we need to solve and the direction that we want to go. To me, that's a much better use of time. Arlene, I saw your hand up, and when you unmute, you're free to talk.
Yeah, thank you. I I want to support Howard's comment that we should share this or try to share this with the other ANCs because I think you all did such a tremendous job, uncovered a lot of different issues and thought about them really well. And I think it would be a shame to not to share it with the other ANCs, especially the ones that spoke at the ANC meeting and were concerned about the genital density. So I don't know, is there a mechanism that you can use to share all of your work with them?
I think there is, and I think Arlene, I think the line that I want to be careful in walking is I think it's important to share the information. I think it's very appropriate to share the work that we did as a committee with the commissioners who did speak, so that they've got that information and they can consider it themselves. Um, uh, so I think that'd be a fine thing to do just from an education perspective. But I think we can probably do that at the same time that we don't pursue this further in 1B. All right. We have a motion and we have a second. Do just raise your hand if you are in support of withdrawing the resolution from ANC 1B consideration. All right. So four in support and four abstentions. So we will withdraw. I will send that note around to the commission and I will copy the full committee on that note. The next item, we have another resolution that was passed and I apologize to the committee members for not including this in the written agenda. We passed a resolution forming a committee that would focus specifically on comp planning topics. What we have set up is called a special committee, which is allowed or enabled through our standard operating procedures. It establishes a special committee. That special committee operates for 90 days. The effective start date of that committee is February 15th. And the expectation is that we would run February to March, April, May, and that we would then present the findings of the committee on the comp plan at the May Committee of the Whole meeting at the end of May, and then present the findings to the full commission at its meeting in June. The focus of the special committee is going to be on the Comp Plan 2050. The thinking here is that there was no one committee that had a full view into all the comp planning topics, And so this would be an opportunity to bring together the three committees that were most focused on comp planning activities, economic development, zoning and planning, and transportation, parks and public spaces. And so the focus of this committee is to bring together the expertise and insights of those three groups. Each committee is allowed to send up to three participants from its committee, along with its chairperson. The chair of the commission is also allowed to nominate up to three individuals to participate. And the goal of that is to, goal of the chair's recommendations is to broaden the perspective of the committee participants beyond kind of the folks that normally participate. So perhaps having somebody from the business community, perhaps having somebody like a Howard University that's a large landowner in the ANC area. But having these different perspectives. And so we would have roughly 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 people on this committee. The focus of the committee would not be to make specific recommendations, but rather it would be to capture public input, expert input, to organize all of those insights, and then to present those insights back to the commission. There could be an organization of the insights from a kind of a majority versus a minority view. And by that, I mean kind of large number of voices versus a small number of voices. But there was very strong agreement that the goal of the committee was not to hear all the information that might be presented by the committee and then to limit the final report to the top three. The sense was that was too important a task and too controversial an ask to assign to the committee. The goal here is to broaden the discussion and to make sure that more voices are brought into this discussion around the comp plan. Furthermore, the primary focus is going to be on issues and items that impact the ANC area. Although the chair did advocate for the ability to talk about some broader citywide topics where they were particularly relevant to the commission area. But again, I think there's a lot of work to be done inside of our commission area. What I'm going to ask is that if the committee members here, and I'll send a separate note out tomorrow morning so that everybody is covered, that if you are interested in participating in this special committee, to email me, let me know that you're interested. If you don't mind giving me just a couple of kind of thoughts about what you'd hope to contribute, that would be great. And then the only other thing I will say, this has me a little bit nervous personally, but the only other thing I'll say is that we are anticipating that this committee is not going to just meet 3 times. This committee is probably going to meet more like 4 to 5 times. And they are probably going to be at least, kind of a 90-minute meeting, if not a little bit longer based upon public input. So if it's something that sounds like of interest, I would honestly highly recommend anyone on this committee because I think there's so much depth of knowledge and experience and thoughtfulness. But if you're interested, let me know. I will be participating as one of the co-chairs. But I would love to have kind of the expertise of this group also represented, and we can send up to 3 people to that committee. Let me pause there and see if there's any questions from the committee members about that, and then let me also turn to the members of the public to see if you have any thoughts or concerns or recommendations about making sure that we are getting this right as it relates to engagement around the comp plan. Gene Hamza, go ahead.
I'm surprised that no one else wants to say something. But I would like to recommend that the arts community be represented, and I'm not specifically thinking about us or live music. We have one gallery, I think, on U Street. If
Mhm.
more, I sure would like to know about it. And there's an interesting concept going on at the old Bohemian Gardens at 11th and U, where he is talking about trying to have gallery space. It's not going to happen right away, but I love that. I love art in bars. And so anyway, I would like to suggest that. And one other thing. had someone challenge me, what kind of community do we want to be? Of course, that's what the comp plan is about. And do we want to be an arts and entertainment community? Or, continue going down this path of it's just a party zone. I think the comp plan is very important. So those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Gene. And the individual that you're referencing, the gallery owner, is a member of our U Street Business Roundtable. And I will reach out to her along with the chair to see if that's an appropriate perspective to bring into the conversation. But I like the thinking around arts and kind of our relationship on the corridor to them. Other thoughts, questions, comments? Okay. So committee members, ping me with an email. Let me know if you're interested. We are finalizing Christian Brandt as chair of ZPD, Commissioner Holden as the chair of Transportation, Parks, and Public Spaces, and I are finalizing details around the kickoff date. We will be having Office of Planning come and do a deep, kind of a detailed presentation to us around the commission area and what they call the mid-city area, which was the prior framework that they used in planning. But we're looking to get the demographic information, the projections, what they're looking at and using in their planning. I really want to have this be very kind of fact and information based. I want people to come out of this being a lot smarter about what's happening in our area. And so I'm hoping that almost to some extent for members of the public who want to participate, even if they don't, share any kind of specific goals or objectives for development. I'm hoping that they can come and just learn a lot more about what's going on in the area and what the Office of Planning is looking at. Krishna, go ahead. I know your hand went down, but I know you still had a thought.
Yeah, but just as a really minor point, you said we could nominate up to three people. Do they have to be members of the committee already, or could they be members of the public that the Economic Development Committee puts forward?
That's a good question. The way that the resolution was written, it was focused on members of the committee.
Okay,
And the goal, I mean, honestly, the goal was is that uh, I don't know how all the other committees are. I look at the folks who are in the attendees list. We've got a very regular group of people who attend who are super knowledgeable. But the goal of the committee itself was to have people from the committees who were really knowledgeable and had been kind of in these meetings and in these conversations for, a
okay,
year plus,
got
because
it.
it would fast track our ability, we thought, to kind of organize and structure insights. We're tracking.
20,
Uh,
20 minutes.
next, yep, next. Quick update. Some folks may be aware of this. The zoning decision for 1617 U Street dropped, and so that has been a kind of a kind of a moment that I know a lot of people have been waiting for. I have not read the zoning decision yet. I am happy to send it out to the committee members. In fact, I just will, so you've got it. And then I know that there's a group of folks who are paying close attention to it, so I will send it out to them as well. If they, don't already have it, I'll share it with them. Um, I had emailed Daniel Lyons in the Deputy Mayor of Economic Planning and Development Office and just asked him to send me a copy of it because it had not made its way through our commission to me yet. And Daniel called me tonight and said, "Hey, sorry, I didn't send this to you directly. I know a number of people were copied. I didn't think about, whether you were copied. I just assumed you had been." Part of what he shared is that the priorities of his office and the deputy mayor for planning's office are still, they've got a lot of things going on. Those things are very much outside of ANC 1B and away from 1617, that they are not envisioning any kind of immediate action on 1617. And we both reaffirmed that we, appreciate that we are having very regular conversations back and forth, and that when the moment happens where they say we're going to, start thinking about this again, we will then structure our community engagement efforts and process. Beyond that, though, we're not just leaving it at, hey, let us know when. We committed to reconnect with one another again in about 60 days, and I anticipate that we'll be connecting sooner than that. But I'm appreciative of his, candor with me, and I'm appreciative of his real desire to, let us know what's going on and to make sure that when the timing is right, i.e., when their office is ready to start putting energy into planning this, that they will reach out. Um, and again, we've got another big factor here that all of you are likely paying attention to, and that is that the mayor who is mayor today will not be mayor next year. And so there will be two things, right? The first thing is that we're going to have a wholesale shift in priorities. The second is that there will likely be some tweaking and adjusting to some of the minor priorities. My sense is that the whole DemPed office is not going to get completely shaken up, and we'll continue to work closely with them. But I think we're going to be paying close attention to kind of how those priorities shift. Uh, my guess is that there's not going to be a big shift in the Bowser administration's priority relative to this property between now and the election in November, and that as we see who the new leadership is, we'll start paying attention there. Arlene, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a heads up that the parties that were involved in that zoning case are probably going to ask for a reconsideration of the decision. So I believe we have until March 1st to do that. So we may, it's not quite over. So there's another couple of steps that we could go through before we exhaust all of our options.
Got it. Great. Thanks, Arlene. And then if you don't mind, just keeping me posted on the timeline there, and then as appropriate, would love to have you back to share any updates.
Sure. Okay.
I was proofing a motion for reconsideration of an ABCA decision just before I hopped on this, so I'm very familiar with how these processes work, and appreciate that takes a lot of work to make sure that your community is heard. All right. I think the last thing, any other broad updates? Any other updates from this group or any community updates before I turn to the kind of the last agenda item? I did email, the only other update I wanted to share was that I'd emailed the council member's office related to the placement of the throne. I believe that I shared with all of you because I got the email like literally just before we hopped on our last meeting, that DPW, which manages the kind of the public spaces that the throne would go on, and the throne company, we're both working together to do a site assessment and to understand what were feasible locations for the placement of the throne. My email to the council member's office was, one, when do you think that will be completed? And the second, sorry, that assessment will be completed. And the second one was, how will we have, as a community, input on its final placement? I've not heard back from the council member's office yet. And so as soon as I do, you'll get an email from me. But I expect that we'll be having a conversation and hopefully a vote on placement options when we get back together again in March. Arlene.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you've heard any updates on the throne that was placed at DuPont Circle. I think it was maybe a year or a little more than a year ago. They did place one there. To tell you the truth, I haven't checked to see if it's still there, but it would be interesting to see what their experiences were with having a throne at a public location.
Got it. Let me reach out to that ANC and find out what their feedback is. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that particular throne location. But great to get some input, and I'll reach out and see who's the right person to talk to there. And I'll share
It's
that update
it's
back.
it's it's still there, and I think the feedback has actually been very positive for DuPont Circle.
Good. Great. Cool. Yeah, and the one I had showed on the screen, right? We did a Google Maps review. The other one that I'd shown was down by Judiciary Square area, the archives. And so again, like, they do serve an important role when you think about lots and lots of visitors in areas that don't have public restrooms. and DC really doesn't have public restrooms. There are certain cities that I think have done a really nice job of building public restrooms. We don't even have public restrooms in DC in our public recreation parks. Like Kennedy Rec Center does have one up by the Reservoir Park. They do have one. But in our whole ANC area, it's not as if that park that public park that's over at V Street and 14th has public restrooms, and so there really is a dearth of options. So I'm glad we're pursuing this, and to your point, Arlene, it's good to learn more about what went well and what didn't. Howard, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Malcolm X Park has restrooms, but I was curious about where in the DuPont area is the throne located?
It's right on DuPont Circle.
Oh,
Oh, it's in the
Uh,
actual circle.
It
Technically, I don't know if it's
was.
just,
Oh,
yeah, I'm not sure it's actually on the circle. It's maybe within 20 feet of the circle last time I checked.
got it. Okay.
near P Street.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So the last thing that I wanted to raise, and this may not be given that we only have four committee members tonight. One of the last things I wanted to raise is that had we kind of had more control over our agenda in January, we would have started our year talking about like what are the things that we want to, as an economic development committee, work on in the year ahead. And so I wanted to create some space for that, but I also wanted to offer that we can do another kind of committee meetup, and we'll promote it to the public. So if folks want to join us, they can. But like a meetup at Andy's Pizza, and talk about what are the big priorities that we're seeing from an economic development perspective along the U Street corridor. And I don't want us to feel like we have to follow any kind of comp plan 2050 framework for this. I actually kind of like it when we all roll up our sleeves and we think like locals, because that's what we are. And we say, what do we need to help out with from an economic development perspective along this corridor? And there are themes that we have definitely talked about, where we've talked about, losing a number of different restaurants. We've talked about losing a number of different arts institutions, performing arts institutions. I don't know how many of you saw the post today, but one of our longstanding stalwarts, Right Proper Brewery, is leaving the neighborhood. Their announcement was, and I had a beer with Leah last night, so I got a little bit more of the inside scoop, which I also promised I wouldn't share. But she shared, we're going someplace else, and we're excited about it. So Right Proper is continuing to do well, but that location was not working for them. And then she also shared that they are understanding that something is going to come in right behind them, another restaurant and brewery combo that is hoping to open up in the early spring. So the sad news is we're losing a restaurant that has been a part of the community for a long time. The upside is it shouldn't be sitting vacant for very long. But we know that Right Proper needed a lot of community support to make it as long as they did. And it's important that we think about, how we're providing support. There have been a number of different initiatives that have, been underway. Some of them successful, some of them not. The T Street Task Force is a good example of a bunch of time and energy that's gone in to try to improve the public safety and appearance of that whole area that Right Proper was in. The area next to Cleveland Elementary School, going down to the Watha T. Daniel Library. And we're continuing to have, a set of issues. So, how does that impact our local economy? What are some of the things that we need to be thinking about, need to be working on there? Gene raised an excellent point, which is, what's the future of U Street? Are we an arts and entertainment district? Are we a bar and entertainment district? Are we a small business incubator? One of the things that has definitely struck me over the last probably year, as I've been more involved in the work that we're all doing together, um, is that like nobody serves lunch on the corridor. And there really isn't a big office presence on the corridor after the closure of the Reeves Center. And we've also got, a lot of folks who are living in the corridor, working from home in the corridor, and not a whole lot of things that are really structured and organized to bring people out onto the corridor. And so we've got to some extent a disconnect between the people who live in ANC 1B and the businesses that operate in ANC 1B. And so I think that some of these are interesting topics for us to be able to explore and to prioritize. And the point I'll close with, and then go to Arlene and then to Krishna, is I regularly think about if we do nothing, if I do nothing, what's the likely outcome? And am I good with that? And if I say the way things are headed kind of on their own without any kind of investment or support, if that's not the direction I want it to go, then what's the work that we've got to do? And so maybe that's a challenge to the group, is to think about, where do we want things to go? Where are we headed now? And what's the work we want to do or need to do if we want to move things in a certain direction? But I think that the conversation about the direction is maybe even more important than the things that we do to help effectuate that direction. And so that's a conversation I'd love for us to have as we think about kind of where we put our energy and where we put our time and how we do our work in the coming year. Arlene, go ahead, and then Krishna, I'll go to you.
Yeah, I just had a question. What's the status of the bid versus, was it the NMA, Neighborhood Management Authority, or what? What
Yeah,
happened with
so
that?
so the bid continues to progress. But as you know, I don't have to tell you it's progressing slower than any of us thought. And I know that there's, a handful of just kind of um, logistics elements that are kind of, I think, turning out to be more difficult and more time consuming than they had anticipated. I think where we had left things in kind of September, October of last year, is that we thought we would be having them back for a very robust discussion in January, February of this year. And at this point, we're probably looking at having them come back March, April of this year. So, like, on one hand, we're running behind schedule and it's frustrating. On the other hand, when I do that comparison, that back in September we were talking about having them come and do a robust presentation in January, February, and we're going to be bumping it back 1 to 2 months, doesn't feel that far off. The trigger that's in my mind, or the timeline that's in my mind, is that the way that the bid legislation is written, there's a period over the summer. There's a period over the summer that bids cannot submit an application, so they would need to get their application in sometime in June. And then, of course, with council going through an election, and council not just likely to change, but will absolutely change in January of 27, um, I think submitting something in the fall would be too late. So the real focus that I've got with them right now is understanding whether or not they're going to be able to hit that target in by June. And then to the NMA, my understanding is that legislation has not been withdrawn, even though Councilmember Nadeau has committed her support to a successful bid application. The NMA is still sitting out there. With Kenyon McDuffie having left council, that bill was sitting with the Economic Development Committee, which he chaired, and they're shuffling a lot of priorities around and a lot of work. So I don't know what that means in terms of where that gets prioritized for a review at some point.
It seems to me that would have some effect on the future of U Street, their input, and just if they're going to be successful in even setting up a bid. But anyway, I just was curious how that status of that.
Yep. No, great question, and thank you for asking it. Krishna, to you.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say the only thing I think that I've really changed my mind on in the last 2 years is the need for more street traffic. And let me be clear what I mean by that. Um, actually, Matt, this predated your time on this committee, but I had gone through and had talked to some of the landlords about 3 or 4 years ago. And, one of the points that they had pushed back on is that, real estate rents are are partially dependent on how much foot traffic is in front of it. That's what's determining retail pricing. And that for the foot traffic counts in our area along U Street were not particularly strong. Um, and that I think that you can really see that, and just building off of your comment, that you can see during the daytime and at lunch hours how empty parts of U Street can be. And
Mhm.
even in the evenings at certain hours, it can be empty. And I think that one way to think about what we need to be doing is saying, how do we just get more people out there walking around doing things, spending money, and performing these essential business functions. Businesses that's how these businesses are going to thrive. If people are walking by and they walk by a bar or restaurant and they want to go inside, versus what we really have now.
Yep. Yeah, and look, I mean, we've got a bunch of people who are running for council, Ward 1 council. And each one of them is bringing different ideas with them. I would really like for us to be well-informed advocates as we go into 27, and even leading up to that, where we can say, look, here are some of the things that we would like you to prioritize. These are some of the things we'd like you to champion, and that we're able to fast track some of the work that they might have to do in terms of getting community input, meeting with businesses. I would never want to speak for the businesses, but I like the idea of having done our research, and being able to fast track to some recommendations so that we can get action faster. And the other thing I really like, Krishna, about what you said is, you're talking about a very specific, tangible, measurable metric, which is more foot traffic at certain times of the day. I think it's a great idea. Like,
Yeah,
let's think about some of these very specific tactical goals that we want to be working on, and then let's start to think about some of the things that we can do to advance those.
yeah, and I mean, this is not, I think, a particularly useful insight on my part. I mean, this is fairly, conventional wisdom. But let me just point out something, not to put Gene on the spot here, something like the 9:30 Club. So many people who go to a show at the 9:30 Club, they're going out beforehand. They're always at Andy's Pizzas across the street. They're going to other places. After the show, they continue to go out at other places. So I mean, you're catching them. You're making money off of them three times, which is what our goal should be. I think it's not necessarily happening elsewhere.
Gene, go ahead if you want to respond to that, but I also know you had your hand up prior to that.
Yeah, I'll try to remember everything I want to say real quick. Uh, so to respond to that, there was a study during the the pandemic, that for every dollar spent at in a live entertainment venue, there's $12 spent in the community. Whether that's accurate or not, yeah, it's important. And I do believe that a part of what's happening is, the activity that's on U Street, and also Metro impacts how late people are going to stay out and how much time they're in Arlington, they're going to catch the Metro back and spend that third time of money out elsewhere. But geez, now I can't remember what I was going to initially say. I think it was around oh, gonna have to let it go. For another time, I guess. Sorry.
And so, I mean, Gene, I'm going to keep you on just so that if it comes to you, you can think about it. But Krishna, again, that's another one, right? Where you kind of think about what are the
Oh,
advantage. Go ahead.
sorry. Hotels. I love the idea of hotels. You want people to fill the streets during the hours where it's empty. With hotels, you need dry cleaners, you need all these support things. And if we had three hotels, imagine office is the other thing where you've got people coming in, you need lunch places. Polly's, I don't know, those of you that have been around a while, Polly supported the Reef Center for several years as one of the only places people could eat from there until other little places popped up. So I certainly am not an urban planner. I'm not an economist, but hotels and office spaces and how do we get those people to come here, especially office space? I don't know.
Yep.
That's it. I made us go over time. I apologize.
No, Gene, I was looking at my clock and it was 7:46, so that was all on me. You just took us 2 minutes. Um, so let's do this. Any other kind of comments, Howard, from you or from David?
Well, it seems like if we can get the Reeves Center redeveloped, we will achieve a lot of these goals of a hotel and uh,
Yeah.
offices. So maybe that I'll be curious to see what the new mayor thinks about that. So
In my mind, that can't happen fast enough. But
right.
there's things are slowing down. All the development's supposed to happen around Howard is slowing down.
Yeah.
And I hear there's tons of empty apartments. What do I know? Nothing, but it just doesn't sound good.
Mm. Well, there's different forces, right? So there's kind of a national economic set of pressures that none of us are going to be able to do anything about. Um, there's a bunch of like quite devastating local economic factors that are driven by different decisions that have been come from the administration. And then there's some very local economic factors that have to do with where the mayor and her administration are prioritizing investments in the city. And so if we look at the things that are, kind of closest to home, one of the close to home things is the fact that there's going to be a huge amount of money and investment that get put into the Capital One arena and the connection to the mall. So that whole area of Chinatown is going to get a huge infusion of investment and focus. You're going to have the NFL stadium, the Commander Stadium over on the Anacostia. That's going to be the other place that gets a huge amount of investment. And so naturally, from the mayor's office perspective, there's not going to be a lot of focus on the Reef Center, right? That's just not one of the priorities that's going to rise to the top. And so, when I think about what I'm looking for in our next Ward 1 representative is we need someone who's going to advocate for Ward 1. Um, and so that's kind of where I'm thinking about our effort is how are we effectively advocating for Ward 1 when it comes to choices that the city is making. And then when you think about the kind of the kind of federally driven forces, you got a bunch of agencies that have been diminished and reduced and even closed. And you've got the opportunity to bring a whole new organization and their offices to 14th Street and U. Um, that seems like a good investment for the area and something that we can be working on. Again, I want us to think about how we organize ourselves and what we can do to be strategic about, engaging others and advocating on behalf of this community. Jerry, you had your hand up first, and then I'm going to go to Krishna.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Krishna actually might comment on this. I sent him, and I also posted a link for a tweet from Martin Astermule, which addressed a grant of $259,000 that was given to Torty Gallis, the architecture firm is located in our neighborhood
At Grimkey.
at Grimkey. And the question I have for you, Matt, is has there been any discussion from DAMPED or anyone else that the city is willing to commit funds to studying the situation on U Street with respect to the status quo and how do they currently see the state of affairs? Are they willing to commit any resources to even understanding it, or is this just drift? Anyway, that's all I have.
It's a great question. One of the things that I love about these meetings is that people ask like good questions that I don't have an answer to, and that gives me something that I can now go out and dig into. So let me reach out to OP and let me reach out to DEMPED and let's find out A, what work they already have in process, and B, how we would go about advocating for an additional an additional review. It's a great idea, Jerry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Krishna, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to echo that. So
Okay.
I don't have anything to add.
So let's do this. Let's do this. I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense for us to, uh, we'll find a time in the next couple of weeks. We'll kind of sit down, do some brainstorming about kind of what actions we want to take. Jerry, one of the things I really love about your recommendation or your question is that you're helping me appreciate that we got to figure out what studies have already been done and what thinking's already been done, because there is an element of us kind of figuring out kind of where we want to go, getting some alignment around that, and then thinking about how we can get more involved in terms of advocating and championing different ideas. But let's leverage all the stuff that's been done that can be made available to us. Um, but let me kind of do an outreach tomorrow, see what I can get for us, share it around with the committee members, and then let's get some time to sit down and have some pizza and talk about kind of where we want to go. And then that way, when we come back together again for our next meeting, we can start to share a plan and get some feedback from the community around that plan and those priorities. And again, I don't see this in any way as conflicting or competing with the comp planning work, because the comp planning work is really having kind of discussions about where are we headed over the next 25 years. What we're talking about is where are we headed over the next five. And when I think back 5 years and what's closed, I think, gosh, like what are the different things we would have done if we had laid out a different plan 5 years ago? And so let's start now and let's see what kind of impact we can make. Arlene, last comment to you, and then we are going to wrap up before 8 o'clock.
Okay, last comment. One thing that came up during the zoning hearings on 1617 U Street was the fact that U Street was the Black Broadway of DC. So I wanted to remind everyone that we need to also take a historical perspective and preserve some of that history if we can bring that back.
Arlene, I'm glad you raised that. We had started a conversation kind of in the early days of the bid and when it was still kind of an NMA bid. And one of the things that we had talked about was the fact that business community members raised this. They're like, look, we look down U Street and there's nothing colorful there. It's just dull and drab. And we had talked about a U Street Banners project. And the theme of the U Street Banners project at its inception was going to be Black Broadway. And we thought that it would be a great way to honor the past and celebrate a lot of things that are very unique about U Street and its history, and also give a nod to some of the bigger kind of arts institutions that are and were along U Street. And then we kind of saw how much the neighborhood was changing, and we said, well, let's make sure we're not too far out of step with where we are today. So I think that kind of that idea of and the concept of U Street as Black Broadway needs to be very much a part of the conversation. And I'm hoping that focus also challenges us to be, maybe bigger thinkers in terms of where we're trying to go with all this.
Thank you.
All right, I'm not going to have Krishna hold up the timer again. It is 7:56. It's great to see everybody. Have a great night. Stay dry and warm, and I will see you all in a couple of weeks. And then also, please email me if you're interested in the committee and members of the public. Please join us. We'll be sending out notes to folks who are regular attendees, so that you are very much a part of that process. Adjourning at 7:57. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Matt.
Good night.